Hello everybody, welcome to Who Wants to Be an SDG. Today we are very excited to look at the Sustainable Development Goals issued by the UN, particularly SDG 8, which recognizes the importance of sustained economic growth and high levels of productivity. This creates well-paid quality jobs and calls for decent work for all. We should all care about it as we all look forward to a day when everyone receives work that is productive and delivers a fair income, security in the workplace, and protection and integration for all families. So, today, our first contestants are social cultural lens, economics lens, political legal, and sustainability lens. So, for the first question of the show, what part of the global business environment improves the current situation?
Thinking about it from an economic perspective, I would have to say that the increasingly integrated nature of global economies has contributed to a more efficient transfer of goods and services between those economies in need. I mean, in the time between 1827 and 2014, the average share of GDP going towards exported goods has increased from 7 to over 25%. Further compounding this are the declines in transportation costs since the 30s, with sea shipping down 80%, air freight down 90%, and telecommunications down a full 100%. This has meant is that much more emphasis can be placed on maximizing each nation's comparative advantage, ultimately increasing the total economic output globally, and has further reduced the barriers of entry in developing economies. One of the most notable examples of this is China's economy, which since the 80s has enjoyed a consistent annual growth rate of 9% on average, which is largely related to its investment in industry and infrastructure, key elements of similar SDG 9, particularly targets 9.1 and 9.2.
Valid points, but you failed to consider the environmental effects of this growth. According to Our World in Data, there's an almost linear correlation between GDP and CO2 emissions per capita. Hence, SDG 8 interacts with SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, and SDG 15, life on land. These interactions can cause countries or regions to implement environmental policies,
such as the pollution and waste regulations introduced by the New South Wales Protection of the Environment Operations Act 1997.
Exactly, to meet the targets of 12.2, 12.6, and 15.1. Considering donor economics, such policies limit production processes within the standards of the environmental ceiling, preventing companies from accessing short-term productivity and slowing down economic growth.
I agree. In terms of modern slavery, SDG 8 and 5 go hand in hand, both targeting ending discrimination against women. Given 1 in 130 women worldwide live in modern slavery, both SDGs, specifically target 8.7, are made more difficult to achieve.
Wait, but in terms of what makes it better, from a legal perspective, the state centrality aims to balance incentives for innovation and the interest of organizations. Intellectual property rights incentivize innovation and foster high-paying, full employment aligned with 8.2 for innovation. It interacts with 9.5, promoting innovation through technology and diversification. Its finite nature also enables competition, improvements, and job creation, making it easier to achieve both SDGs.
Pretty heated discussion here, guys. I'll have to lean towards a political legal lens and economic lens for actually answering my question, you know? So next up, what are the opportunities and risks for SDG 8 in the global business environment?
Yes, so intellectual property rights can further market opportunities in digital transformation as it incentivizes organizations to invest in research and development in exchange for competence against theft. VisionFlex, for example, commercialized telehealth and used IPR to protect its creation and organizational value. By gaining an early design certification, it was able to confidently continue its research in the long term. Inclusive hiring practices also reflect an organization's compliance and brand reputation. Australia's Fair Work Act 2009 and Disability Discrimination Act 1992, among others, ensures an equitable and diverse workforce aligned with 8.5 for full and productive employment for all and 10.3 and 10.4 towards greater employment equality through legislation.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. I mean, from a business perspective, opportunities and risks tend to arise from elements of globalization, as companies have both a wider consumer base for their products while also being constrained and subject to a greater variety of political and legal frameworks. This is especially true when issues of political heterogeneity impact economic growth. An example of this was during the Chinese ban on Australian primary goods in response to the Morrison government's inquiry into the genesis of COVID-19 in 2020. This sort of instability poses a risk to many exporters within an economy in the short term and has a trickle-down impact at the local level as revenue streams affect unemployment, income, and consumption with much longer lasting impacts.
It's also important to not forget that achieving economic growth oftentimes comes at the expense of sustainability. As Simon Kucher and partners found, 60% of customers currently prioritize sustainability when making purchases at a global level. Businesses who disregard sustainable practices in favor of profitability will face reduced consumer demand. However, the interactions between SDG 7 and SDG 8 call for technology to improve energy infrastructure, providing businesses with the opportunity to achieve energy efficiency and long-term productivity, improving growth in the long term. India, for example, has begun development of 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity, of which McKinsey has estimated will create $90 billion of GDP growth.
Economic growth also comes at the expense of cheap labour. Hofstede's value dimension, specifically power distance, illustrates the acceptance of unequal power distribution in countries like Malaysia, which has a score of 94, meaning cultural norms such as not challenging authority are regularly accepted. Short term, auditors in Malaysia have already been accused of reaching false conclusions because despite labour violations, the working conditions are said to be fine in the final reports, alluding to Malaysia's rank of 61 on the corruption index, as auditors can be threatened by company executives or be expected to not question their findings. Long-term, however, laws like the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act in the US have already banned imports suspected to be made using forced labor in China, creating opportunities for businesses to be sure of supply chain transparency. However, given 60% of countries risk importing products made under forced labor, government action must be taken to achieve SDG 8.
Great answers, everyone. I think I'll call it a draw here because everyone contributed so well, so everyone's a winner. Just to summarize, a sustainable company is a source of pride for its professionals, as SDG 8 recognizes the importance of sustained economic growth and high levels of economic productivity for the creation of well-paid quality jobs. Companies should all participate and aim to build towards better living standards and social protection for the world. So if you made me CEO today, I would for sure make SDGs my top priority. Thank you. Thank you for watching.